This leads to extremely high LDL cholesterol. As a matter of fact, some of these children at the age of 10, they have CABG procedure. This is how severe it is. Atherosclerosis, I mean, they don't survive that long because of the hypercholesterolemia if they are homozygous. Now, but even for the LDL receptor, next time I'll ask you to walk out. The LDL receptor deficiency, they have more than 1,700 different mutations, not only one mutation at one point. Until now, it's like every month there's an update how many mutations they find in the LDL receptor gene. This is how significant it is. Treatment could be intervention by dietary, by cholesterol-lowering drugs, and so on. But this is about the familial hypercholesterolemia. We'll get into it more in the third year. We'll get into more details. Okay, next one. Cholesterol synthesis. Bile acid synthesis from cholesterol. We know what bile is, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, synthesized in the liver, stored in the gallbladder. I'm not going to call anyone. I'll just ask him to walk out. But also, bile is a major excreted form of cholesterol. These are the bile acids. That includes the cholic acid. You can see the precursor of cholesterol in this bile acid. This is the chenodeoxycholic acid. You can see that we have different groups attached. What's the difference between bile salts and bile acids? Bile salts have, these are primary bile salts, either attached to glycine or taurine. Glycine, glycocholate, taurine, taurocholate. What's the difference between the bile salts and bile acids in terms of function?
They dissolve more.
They're better. These are emulsifiers of lipids. People, when they don't have the bile, see how they feel. When you remove the bladder, the gallbladder, because of the fact there were stones and you just remove it, do you think these people are going to be able to absorb lipids easily?
No.
It's a problem. Right? I mean, these people, they have to eat fat at low amount because there's no bile, there's no emulsification of lipids to be absorbed. And my advice to you, don't get married to someone who removes her gallbladder because of the fact that good luck going out to a restaurant. The minute they eat, they run into the bathroom. So these are emulsifiers. These are better emulsifiers than these. These are what we call primary bile salts. Okay, so primary bile acids, the synthesis, I'm not going to get into the pathways. I just summarized for you simple steps. All I want you to know is that cholesterol is a precursor for bile acid synthesis. And also we have primary bile acids, these are the steps. Secondary bile acids, where basically the primary bile acids are converted into the intestine. They're converted by bacteria into the secondary bile acid. That includes the oxycholic acid, lithocholic acids. And this is, you can see it in the recycling of bile acids, where 95%, some textbook puts it at 98%, of the bile acid is recycled, meaning cholesterol intake, we said 0.5 gram per day or 1 gram per day, depending on your diet. We have 0.5 gram per day that are basically, we can secrete through the bile acid. There's conjugation to bile salts, get excreted in the common bile duct, of course it gets stored in the gallbladder, and this will result, as I said, 30% of gram per day in the intestine. And we said that comes from where? De novo synthesis, but also biliary secretion. We do have secretion from the biliary duct. But then what happens? Most of this 30 gram per day gets some of it gets converted into by the bacteria into primary, secondary bile acids, gets reabsorbed back into bile acids. So this is what we refer to as the enterohepatic circulation of bile acids. Some of it will be excreted into the feces, and that's 0.5 gram per day. So you can see that whatever you take comes out right there. So it's all related to the biliary secretion coming from the de novo synthesis. What happens when you have high levels, or there's a problem with the delivery of bile into the intestine? We know that there is basically obstruction of the secretion of the bile. As a result, we have stones, gallstones, and this could be also some of the side effects of drugs. The gemfibrozil is sequestering drug that we use to lower the cholesterol levels. How? By increasing the secretion, and this could have actually some side effects, but also we could have also obstruction of the bile duct, and of course you have to remove the gallbladder as well. Bile salt deficiency leads to cholelithiasis, and these are some of the reasons for that. Okay, let's move to steroids, because I'm limited and I want to finish this. We know what steroids hormones are. They are important in many different pathways, including glucocorticoids for carbohydrate regulation, mineral balance for mineralocorticoids, reproductive functions, the gonadal steroids. I want you to know these because either know it now, next year, or the year after. I mean, you have to know these. Glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, gonadal steroids. Then, since we use cholesterol to synthesize these steroids, they're not water soluble. So how do we transport it? Similar to the lipoproteins, we're transporting lipids in circulation. Here they come attached to some binding proteins, such as the corticosteroid binding globulin carries cortisol. It's bound in circulation because it's hydrophobic, so we need to attach it to a hydrophilic kind of protein. Steroid binding globulin, which carries the testosterone and estradiol. This won't go to the next level. The types of steroid hormones include glucocorticoids, from the name, cortisol. So you need to differentiate between cortisol, cortisone. Cortisone is intermediate of cortisol pathway. People confuse what is cortisol and cortisone. Which one you get for treatment? Is it the cortisol or cortisone? Cortisone, but at least you know that it is an intermediate. Mineralocorticoids includes aldosterone. Always think, you want from now on, for the rest of your life. Aldosterone retains salt, mainly sodium. Antidiuretic hormone retains water. So we have salt retention by aldosterone. Why? I'm going to show you why. Androgens, these are male hormones, testosterone. Estrogens, including estradiol and estrone. What's the difference? Estradiol by ovaries. Estrone, fat tissue. And it has the same effect, with estrogen more potent. This is why when we gain weight, there is breast enlargement as well. Because that fat tissue would also synthesize the estrone, and that will increase the estrogenic effect. Progestins, such as progesterone. Steroid hormones are synthesized from backbone of cholesterol. It is synthesized in the mitochondria and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. They are not stored like the bile. We store it in the gallbladder. They're synthesized and released to exert their effects. So they're lipid soluble, thus are freely permeable to membranes, and they're not stored in cells. Here's a table that third year you will memorize it. This year, I just want you to memorize third ones. Why? Because I'm going to give you examples of how this mutation could lead to completely different treatment based on where the mutation is. But these are all enzymes related to steroid synthesis, steroidogenic enzymes. So we do have the aromatase, which basically is CYP19, responsible for the estradiol synthesis. We don't need to know about it. At this time, as I said, there are many hormones, the 21 alpha hydroxylase, the 11 beta hydroxylase. This is referred to as CYP21, cytochrome P450, 21A2, CYP11B1. Know these ones, and I'll explain to you why. Okay, I'm going to give you things simple way, but as I said, third year, you expect higher than what you're going to get. Cholesterol precursor, synthesized, we utilize it to synthesize progestins, such as progesterone. Progestins is utilized to synthesize the glucocorticoids, mineralocorticoids, and androgen, by which we said androgen including example, testosterone, right? So that we can synthesize the estrogen. Guess what? For male chauvinists, this is a good excuse why men have to control, for male chauvinists I said, because even females cannot get their estrogen unless they make the testosterone. Okay? I mean, I'm not supposed to say this, but this is nature. You know, I mean, the females synthesize their estrogen after they synthesize their testosterone, and then it gets converted to estrogen. Okay, more. Why don't we just skip this? I'm sorry, to which one? This one. I'll tell you what to know. Actually, before I get into this, I need to show you some regulatory mechanism. Cholesterol, we synthesize from it pregnenolone. Pregnenolone, we synthesize progesterone, progestins. This is progestins, progesterone. From it, notice here, it diverts into, we said, aldosterone, which is mineralocorticoids, cortisol, glucocorticoids, and estrogen. How? Progesterone, we have 11-deoxycorticosterone. Do I need to know this? The answer is yes, and I'll explain why I need you to know it. Because this is a diagnostic test for one of the mutations, and I'll say why. Notice here, we have the 21 alpha hydroxylase, this is 21A2, converting to deoxycorticosterone. That gets converted to corticosterone and then to aldosterone. This is by 11 beta hydroxylase. I told you to know these two enzymes, right? Then we can go all the way to cortisol, all the way as again testosterone to estradiol. This is the pathway I want you to pay attention to, and I'll explain in a minute. The regulatory rate-limiting step is the entrance of cholesterol to the mitochondria. And this is done by a protein called the STAR. The STAR, the steroidogenic acute regulatory protein, controls this. And hormones regulate this step by regulating the STAR, including the luteinizing hormone, which triggers ovulation, affects cyclic AMP, activates protein kinase A, activates STARs, cholesterol gets in. We know where the sources of cholesterol come from. Cholesterol then would synthesize pregnenolone, different enzymes, all the way to testosterone. We know this leads also to estrogen, luteinizing hormone, ovulation in women, right? Everything I said is here, but let's talk about this pathway. What do I need to know? Year 3, you will memorize the whole pathway because we have more conditions. This year, just two. I'm not going to get into it, just to link it to clinical settings. That's all what I'm doing. Notice here, we start with cholesterol, pregnenolone, progesterone, progestins, deoxycorticosterone, 11-deoxycorticosterone, I told you to know about it, and I circled it for you. Corticosterone, and then we have aldosterone. We know that aldosterone retains sulfur. At the same time, notice the enzyme, CYP21A2, 21 alpha hydroxylase, converts what? the progesterone to 11-deoxycorticosterone. I just highlighted for you, highlighted this for you. At the same time, the same enzyme goes into cortisol production. Why do I need to know this? Because you're going to see that the treatment is going to be different where the mutation is, whether it's going to be in the here or here, because they're shared. And this leads to side effects. So it is, as I said, the treatment is completely different based on where the mutation is. So we have 21A2 involved in the aldosterone synthesis for sodium retention. At the same time, we have the CYP11B1, which converts the 11-deoxycorticosterone into corticosterone, and this could also target for mutation and could be mutated, and we'll give you some conditions. But at the same time, look at it. They also metabolize intermediates to synthesize the cortisol. So we do have here the same pathway, progesterone, either going this way or going through this way, 21 into 11-deoxycortisol. This is 11-deoxycorticosterone. This is 11-deoxycortisol. And this gives you cortisol. This pathway also leads to estradiols, estrone from the fat, estradiol can come from testosterone. This is just general information for that pathway. For now, focus on mutations into CYP21A2, mutation to CYP11B1, and I told you here about this pathway just to give you an example. So, we have a condition called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Congenital adrenal, we know what's the adrenal gland, right?
Yes.
We have hyperplasia. Remember this word, hyperplasia. What does it mean? Increase in mass of the adrenal gland. This is autosomal recessive condition. Accounts for 95% of all cases of congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and it impairs synthesis of cholesterol and aldosterone. Let's look at it. The most common one is the 21-alpha hydroxylase deficiency. 95% of these as a result of CYP21A2. So let's see if we can make sense out of it in terms of symptoms. What happens when we have CYP21A2 mutations? Can we synthesize this? Okay. Can we synthesize cortisol? So we have cortisol deficiency, we have aldosterone deficiency. As a result, what happens to these precursors? Push that way. As a result, what do you think? We have too much estradiol, we have too much testosterone in female, and too much estradiol in male. Just by blocking this enzyme. Diagnostic value, if you want to diagnose the condition, you measure the 17-hydroxyprogesterone because it's pushed that way. So we measure the 17-hydroxyprogesterone to diagnose 21-alpha hydroxylase deficiencies because there's high levels. I selected it for you. Okay? Now, do you think this patient has low sodium? Do you think it's going to be hypertensive or hypotensive? Sodium, is it going to be retained?
No.
Lost. Hypotensive. Low hypovolemia, hypotensive. Now let's look into the other condition, the 5%, where there is a mutation in the CYP11B1. Let's see if you could figure it out. Are we synthesizing aldosterone?
No.
We're not. Are we synthesizing cortisol?
Yes.
Cortisol, are we synthesizing?
No.
We're not. So we have both deficiency in the aldosterone and the cortisol. As a result, we have the same kind of symptoms. Virilization and early puberty for male. But the question is, why are these hypervolemia, hypertensive, compare them this one? So the treatment is different. We're talking about hypertension here, hypervolemia. Diagnostic value, in terms of if you want to diagnose this mutation, you measure the 11-deoxycorticosterone. This is the measurements for the CYP11B mutation. Whereas here, if you have CYP21A2 mutation, you measure the 15-hydroxyprogesterone. Treatment is different because we have the 17-deoxycorticosterone, which has similar effect as the aldosterone. Not as potent as the aldosterone. As a result, retains sodium, water, hypervolemia, hypertension. So, depending on where the mutation is, completely different picture here. Treatment is different. But they're both lacking aldosterone, both lacking cortisol. So you need to give cortisone, supplement, injections. And then aldosterone you don't need to because you already have it right there. Are we clear about it?
Yes.
Just to show you why, to understand why and so on, because the treatment is completely different. And also the virilization. And I mean, I remember when I was doing my taxes in the US, unfortunately, I mean, my accountant that I do my taxes with, when I go there, she had a beard, she had mustache, she doesn't shave and so on. I mean, it is common. I mean, I dealt with her, it was difficult, but unfortunately, it's nothing to laugh at. I mean, it's not in her hand, but I'm saying that there are people like this. Okay? Anything else? I think we're all set. Okay?